Hello, everyone, and thank you all for joining us for this for this Snyk Live on a Friday afternoon or Friday morning, or if you're watching the recording, just the day in general. But yeah, hello, everyone, and thank you very much for joining us today. My name is Developer Steve. I'm one of the senior developer advocates at Snyk. And well, I'm based in Australia, and one thing we like to do before we kick off events or before we start events is just to acknowledge the first people or the Indigenous folks on the lands that we're presenting from today. So on that note, I'd like to begin by acknowledging and paying my respects to the traditional owners on the lands on which we meet today, with a special heartfelt respect and acknowledgement to the Waganja people, who are the traditional owners here in Narromine, where I'm presenting from. So thanks for joining us. Now, as we go through today, we've got a really exciting guest today that, we're going to have a pretty fun chat. But as we're going through, if you have any comments or questions, please pop them into the chat and we'll answer them as we go through. So without further ado, let's bring out our guest for today. So, Saman Fatima, who is a speaker and cyber security enthusiast, a data engineer at Macquarie Group, and volunteer with a number of communities such as Lean In, Cyber Presence, OWASP WIA, YSIS India, and a whole bunch more. I know she's done some amazing talks recently with the DevSecOps communities and a whole bunch of others. So please, big round of applause for Saman. Hello.
Hey, Steve. Thanks so much for that introduction. That's really amazing. How are you doing?
Good, thank you. How are you today? Thanks for joining.
Yeah, I'm really great and was really looking forward for this live session and to have some fun chat around a lot of things going on. So yeah, really excited for this one with you.
Amazing. No, really excited to have you here. And hello, Davis Peter in the chat there. So if anyone does have any questions, comments, please drop them into the chat. But let's get started with some of our questions. Um, Tell us a bit about your background from the tech industry, or just yes, go through some of your background for us if you can.
Okay, so I was uh, doing my bachelor's and got graduated in 2017, and that was the time that I landed up to my first job with my previous organization where I worked. And that was the first of my experience with security, where I was working as an IAM consultant, majorly on being on the DevOps engineer part, working on the identities and access management and how things flows using the Gartner's tool SailPoint. And then eventually I switched my path and then was working as same the DevOps engineer with a banking and financial firm on their IT end. That's my current organization. That's a Sydney-based bank. And then I switched my roles very recently to become a data engineer. That's something I found really interesting, and that guess everybody would say that I reversed my ways. That firstly, I was working as a DevOps engineer, and now I am analyzing data in particular. So that was the major thing which I found out, that no, what data I used to get in my previous role, I just need to know how to analyze it, how to channel it in correct ways, how can it be more vulnerable, and things of that sort, how it plays through with that data. So currently, I am a data engineer, and apart from that, as mentioned by Steve as well, I am a core cybersecurity enthusiast. I am really passionate about this industry. I don't hold any certificates or any formal, graduation or anything in this particular domain, but I love to learn every day about anything and want to grow more and penetrate more into this industry by learning. So communities have helped me a lot to groom me in both tech and non-tech ways, and I would like to discuss more around it later in the session, where people could know and understand how they could deep dive into a community and how they could actually transform them. So that's particularly being a data engineer is my day job. And after the full-time job, which actually pays me off, I start up with the community work and with everything that goes into it, helping people or being speakers at places, or just, coming down and sharing my experiences with things with years that I've been. So yeah, 5 years down the line, it feels really great to be growing into this industry, and I see a lot, I could and all of us could actually excel into this particular industry. Thank you.
No, amazing. And one of the things I've always loved about the tech industry, particularly, is it because it covers like so many different groups now. It is easy for us to move, or easier for us to move around and switch to data, switch to back to programming, like go into DevOps. Like, I actually did the reverse. I started as a data engineer. I was data engineer for 10 years, and then became a developer. So
That's great.
yeah, I
I guess
think
that's
the
the forward way actually to actually first understand how data driven organizations can scope up in those ways, and then once you understand the importance of data, because data is something very important that we actually play across with. So by that only we develop things, we operationalize things, and we secure things. So yeah, that's amazing that you've spent 10 years and lots to learn from you as well, Steve. I'm just 4 months down to be a data engineer now.
I still love playing with data. Geospatial analytics are amazing, but we'll get into that in a little bit. My question, sort of around background, is, and I always love asking this, is like, how did you get into development or tech, or just tinkering with code and playing with technology things? Like, what got you started into it?
Okay. So as I just mentioned, I landed up, and luckily I landed up into a small portion of security, that's IAM. And from there, I understood the importance of actually identity and how accesses should be maintained. And from there, with my first job, I deep dive into certain development areas where I got a picture, because I was a fresh graduate. And then I got a clear picture eventually that, okay, when things run from the back end with certain curly codes or certain see out scenes or any other language people use, things get reflected onto the front end as well. And that was really exciting for me to actually do it myself, that if I just push something from behind, from back end, how will it show it in the front end? So that was the stepping stone for me actually to do those things. And then eventually short snippets of codes I wrote, and eventually that they were part of bigger codes actually. And when they went live, it was just 3 or 4 line code, but that gave me next level confidence. And it's not just proper code structuring, but basic Linux commands, executing them and getting hold of a lot of things at those early stages were really, really exciting for me. And it was really overwhelming from me that, whatever I learned, because Linux commands, basic coding, I was made aware in my college curriculum, but I never understood they could be used at a wider aspect in an organization as well. Like, a normal, if you just push those curl commands, and if you push those something you do on the editor mode, how things get reflected on the main end for your organizational codes. So those were my early stages with playing with things, and eventually I came down to a level that I could actually read a lot of lengthy codes and then put down certain things in it, and then run it and get a lot of errors. Actually, I've seen a lot of errors, a lot of compilation errors, and crazy days as well. But yes, that was once my first experience with development, and how I found it really exciting, really overwhelming, and learned it in those ways.
Um, yeah, I totally agree. Actually, we've had someone comment in the chat on YouTube as well. Shout out to Ali. It's saying that there was that moment when the first code where you feel like you own the internet, because look, I've built a thing. And I think, as technology folk, we always remember that first code, which, you do feel like you've built a thing, you've
and
achieved a thing, and you keep building from that, which
and just
always fulfilling.
yeah, and just a fun fact, I usually used to comment there and used to write my name. So that used to give me next level happiness there. That I used to just 2 line of codes, and just I used to in front of it comment it and write, "This is edited by Saman Fatima." And I used to really feel happy about it, that in the larger code section I have 2 lines that I have written. So that was something amazing for me as well.
Follow-up question to that. This is one of my favorites to ask. Is what was your first computer?
Oh, my first computer. That has to be. I'm not that old for all the audience to let them know, but yeah, I've my early stages with computer in my childhood were the old CRT screens computer actually, which used to have big CPUs. Now we have very smaller CPUs that we can carry, and at times now we have actually ignored that space as well, having laptops in picture. But yeah, those were the days when I used to get really overwhelmed with those computers, that just a small screen can actually be colorful by using paint. My first encounter with actually Microsoft Suite, with all applications that we use then, and it was quite overwhelming for me to see all of those things running there. And the fact that we could put screensavers, wallpapers, and once we're inactive, we don't have hold onto the system, bubbles come onto the screen, or certain I still remember I used to put my name as the screensaver, and it used to float around the screen. So those were the days when I first came across through the CRT screen computers. And then eventually came down, the computers became slimmer, 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 and now you see me sitting in front of this laptop. So
Yeah.
come a long way. So I've seen them getting a lot slimmer, a lot better, and with more technology advancing, with more things got customized and got customized into smaller areas, that it could be easily portable. So that was the changing experience for me since childhood.
Nice. Yeah, it is. It is pretty mind blowing when you think about it. Like, coming from those days. Well, my first computer was an Atari 800 XL, which now, I mean, my current mobile phone is probably a tenth of, or even higher, like of computing power wise, just doesn't even compare. Um,
Yeah.
we've actually had a question come in, so we might jump track a bit. Which Davis Peter has asked the question of how do we cultivate DevSecOps culture in our organizations?
Okay, that's something really amazing. And I guess down the line we have seen the culture of dev, then we've seen the culture of DevOps actually. I come down from a DevOps role, so I've seen it very prevalent in all of the organization, and following agile methodology, and switching between DevOps for every person to know the aspect of it. But with the changing scenario, with the changing technology, with upgradation and everything, we cannot forget the fact that hackers are also advancing with every day. As the technology advances, that end is also advancing every day. And the cyber attacks have grown to such a level, and I guess COVID has also given a boost to it. People working from home, a lot of things has been compromised at the a home setup and everything. A lot of things have been taken across in those ways. But having that security space in your organization is something one should stress upon to now. I guess everybody is aware of the log4j issue, and everybody is getting crazier around it. And if you do not have that security section, if you have those sort of files in your system is gone. So setting up those separate channels for security is very important. And also, I just don't want to quote it as DevSecOps, rather, I want to quote it as SecDevOps. That's my thing and my take onto it, that you should have security at very early stages of development, and security should not be pushed in middle or a very later stage when things are really at a very compromisable space, but rather you have those sort of security set up, you have those sort of checks done, and then you throw your code into production through your CI/CD pipeline. So that's my take, that in this particular age and space and scenario, security is very important. You do not develop things, you do not operationalize it, but securing your system, your servers is something, uh, it's something very much required, because we all are under the radar. And i don't I don't think so that nobody and none of the organization have any PI data. They have it, a lot of clients data, a lot of sensitive red data, and you have to actually protect them. So understanding the importance of having security is really important for a lot of organizations to build it. So, developing it, training your people, making them realize that rather than sitting crying at last and paying a lot of lawsuit and having that, stamp on your organization of being attacked and lost so many contacts or so many data, is better to set up those layers of security beforehand so that you are at a greater pitch. Just a very small example: you do not patch things on time, you have vulnerable third party sites used, you have a lot of sensitive data, uh, like passwords, directly pushed into your codes. So that is somewhere down the line, if somebody gets hold of those systems, you are totally gone, you are totally compromised. So those kinds
Yeah.
of checks have to be done.
Yeah, no, totally agree. Actually, interesting question sort of on that too is, and I know this is something, well, I've seen talked about through some of the OWASP and security groups over the last 3, 4 months or so, but how soon do you think is too soon to bring the discussion of security into, into a project? So in the ideation stage, for example, like when the initial idea is being built out, do you think that's a good time, or like further on once the first prototype's been built? Like how soon's too soon, do you think, to bring security in?
I guess security, as per my aspects, what I've seen across is has to be there, has to float at all levels, and security and development have to go hand in hand, keeping security on top. Because, for example, we are developing a very small code in a game. For example, just a very small portion of it that the uh, the the main hero would jump from that wall, that we write codes for it and everything. But the security team, once when they sit there, when they hear that idea, actually they would understand the actual scenario of that particular jump happens, what all things can actually attack it, what all things can be on the loose side. And that is somewhere down the line, when those codes are being set up and when you push them into the lower environment, a lot of static or dynamic testing gets happened on them, so that you are very much aware that what all softwares you use, what all third party sites you are hosting it onto, what all things, property files or anything you are using there, they are protected, and then you push it further. So they should go hand in hand, actually. And with every lower environment also, you should have those kinds of rigorous tests, so that you are very much sure from the very first stage that your three pieces of codes are, like three lines of codes are okay, and they will not pose any threats when moved to production.
Yeah. Actually, another question sort of on the back of that one is, what are some ways? I know sometimes these projects, particularly in the larger organizations, can cover a multiple of internal groups. What do you think are some ways that a multiple of groups can align their security approach? I mean, does this come down to more of the approach on the security first culture?
um when any organization is actually setting up that security culture, the very first step that I think is, just for example, my organization is setting up the security culture. So they should first align their existing employees to have those sort of trainings, because understanding the pain point is very important right now. Understanding how you can, at a very later stage, get attacked and get affected is something they should understand. They should understand, if they have certain kind of privilege accesses with them, they are at threat. And there are a lot of people, I'm not talking about only the digital accesses, I'm talking even the physical access to the server rooms as well, they are the privilege rights. And those sort of things, people should understand first the pain point, and then actually, then they would actually align themselves better, that they would head back to the latest patch soon, they would keep them upgraded, their systems upgraded, they would better use cloud and everything a lot. you know switching from traditional on premises to the cloud security, where a lot of services also is provided by a lot of platforms. It's just that not every space is completely secure, but there are steps you can take from very starting that can make you feel secure. Because as I said, with technology advancing every day, hackers are also advancing every day. And if you know the solution to one security issue today, you cannot be sure that tomorrow's issue you can also break through, because with everything advancing you also have to get hold of that issue. So uh, employees being the first target, and we cannot go by the fact that we always have insider threats. Humans are the weakest link. Rather than jumping onto the external factors, we also have the insider threat as well. And there are, I guess, a lot of instances where a lot of data has been shared from the organization to somewhere outside. So a lot of red data being shared by different people of different organizations. So employees being the first to actually understand, make them understand why this culture is actually important.
Yeah. With one thing I'm a big fan of and I've seen an emergence of over the last year is multi-cloud. How do you think those organizational processes can fit, like security-wise? How do you think there are some ways that like a security-first mindset can approach to something like multi-cloud? Actually, you also touched on another point there. Part of the multi-cloud deployment is on premises too, like access to
Yeah.
server rooms and all that sort of stuff. Like, how do you
Yes.
think that can a security first approach can fit with that really well?
Yeah. Just before starting, just a heads up for everyone what is actually multi-cloud. So that's, if in a single architecture you have different cloud platforms, like for your own organization you use different cloud platforms, like you have AWS as well, where you have your applications and data hosted. You have Azure as well, you have Google as well, and you have all three of them together using all of their services, because their all services are different from each other. At some points they match up, but yes, using all three of them could be useful for you a lot. But that goes without saying, everything can be attacked, everything is at vulnerable spaces. So first of all, if you have three or two cloud platforms being used in your organizations for your applications and data, first of all, you should have those kinds of forces like workforce that can fully understand the dev, sec, and ops portion of both the cloud platforms. If it is Azure and if it's AWS, they should understand both the issues, vulnerability, coming down from each of the tabs, each of the services they offer. They should be very much well versed with it, because once you're attacked, you need those sort of people to actually fix that. So AWS can fix the AWS ones, Azure can fix the Azure ones. So this is one of the biggest issues that I see when you're using multi-cloud. It could be very beneficial that you're using multiple services offered by multiple, cloud platforms. But I guess you need to have those workforce as well, people to actually back you up once you are, into that vulnerable space, and they know the platform better and they can get it fixed. Because if we have both the platforms but we don't have that much knowledge with our employees to actually fix it, that could be somewhere really really bad for people to actually get it fixed. So having multiple clouds is somewhere down the line great. You are actually increasing your scalability and all those services they offer, but that goes without saying that you need those kinds of knowledgeable people for that particular platforms to get you out of it when you're in danger.
Yeah, no, that is a good point, because ultimately, and being anyone that's been around the tech industry always knows this. Everything always fails on a Friday afternoon or a Friday night, like every time.
Yes,
Too many times.
totally. And it's not
The
even Friday, the holidays, the Saturdays, Sundays will be all gone if you don't have those people with you. So people
yeah,
like your workforce is the one who can back you up with all these things. So I guess
actually,
that's a small thing that I just mentioned, that A workforce can actually help you with these dangers, and the same workforce can actually pull you down as well if certain kinds of insider threats come. So understanding the psychology of the workforce is very important to actually know how they are reacting with things, how they're understanding things. So that's, the psychological aspect of us working in an organization. How do we take those things, the leakage, the breaches, everything? So that's the point.
I was just going to do a big shout out to anyone in security or anyone anywhere over the internet over the last week that has had to go in on the weekend to deal with Log4j threats recently. So thank you. I'm just going to say that
Yeah.
now because there was a lot of people on call last weekend. You could feel it. So the other question I had, well, kind of with multi-cloud too, but going into one of your previous domains with IAM is what do you know any ways that you could, because with multi-cloud, I imagine one of the biggest challenges is going to be like managing the IAM across a multiple of clouds, all with their own configuration, with their all different staff being able to access different things. Do you know some good ways to be able to manage those IAM permissions?
Okay, so if we are into the picture of multi-cloud and we are hosting a lot of data of users actually, and they have different levels of access. So with IAM, there is an offering of, reviewing your accesses at different stages. So that is quite dynamic for an organization to actually set it up. It could be either monthly that you set up those reviews, and for example, I report to you, Steve, and every month you get certain reports that someone has below 5 access. She has access to the physical server, she has access to some other entitlements, or some other accesses as well she holds. It's you who can review it better, that okay, if she has switched roles from being a DevOps engineer to a data engineer, she should not hold these above 3 access, so that should be revoked immediately. So these are the review phases which organizations can set it up for users and for their accesses, and they could better review it to know that these particular access which the user holds is correct, is apt for their role. And if not, that should be revoked immediately, so that privileged accesses are not held by people who should not have it. So I would stress that these kinds of reviews should be done periodically. The only time frame that's recommended is one should have it quarterly. Every quarter, these reviews must be done for each and every user of the organization. It should go to their next level manager, and they should review it to know that nobody has that access which they should not have. And that ways, you once you sort out the access, then I guess you are at a good stage. If you use multi-cloud, then those kinds of data are compromised at two of the cloud platforms, and if certain people have plus one access they should not have, that could be really dangerous for a lot of people in the organization. So that is something that IAM offers, the program offers, to review it uh, quarterly, monthly, bi-weekly, anything of that sort. And the people who can review it would actually check down that you should have this access or your access should be revoked. So that's one great thing of IAM that you can take advantage of.
Do you think there's a minimum number to an organization or to a group for an IAM strategy to be implemented? Like, is there, I'm kind of thinking, the broad range of two people startup right up to big organization. Do you think there's a minimum number for a strategy to be put in place?
I would not say minimum number, but if your users, if just five in number in your organization, if it's just mere five people working, if they hold privilege access and a few of them do not, I guess IAM should be implemented and should be, standing strongly there. Because once somebody has pseudo access, like for example, I just say I have pseudo access, I can do anything with that super user access, then that sort of reviews should be implemented in the organization to know what the user has access to and what all the user can do with the with those access. With super user, I can delete any tables. So that
Yeah.
is somewhere down the line very I guess with my career, and I guess you would also second to that, that deleting tables is something considered really red, really not good. So
Oh yeah.
those sort of accesses are only given to people who require it. So
Yeah.
you should build up those sort of programs. You should review at least the accesses of your reportees to know what all access they have.
Oh, I get
So
nervous
there's
just
no,
even like. Oh, you go.
yeah, I was just saying, like, there's no minimum number to it. But yes, if there is privilege access involved, be it in physical terms or in digital terms, you have access to some other environment. Like, for example, you have access to the debug page of the production environment where you can just go and change the codes from backend, and the same could reflect into the front end. So those accesses should be reviewed. Why that user has that access in the first place, and if not, then it should be removed.
Oh, I was just going to say I get nervous that the very few times, and I think it has been a very few number of times where I've had to use drop tables in a like a legitimate query when I've actually needed to do that, and it's like, oh, I don't really want to do this because yeah, as you said, like the data we spend as technology folk, we spend so long gathering that data. People have entered things in forms. The last thing you want to do is get rid of it.
Yes,
Um,
and it took me a lot of time to actually get it inside me that there is a difference between the two commands, drop and delete. They do extremely different things, and you have to understand when you use drop and when you use delete. So whenever somebody used to write at those Linux commands time with in my previous organization, I used to just be, just don't remove, just don't drop, just don't delete anything. Don't use drop, delete, remove. Just don't. You don't have to see it on the black screen. These three things should not come on screen. Do anything, copy, cut, paste, move anything, but just not drop, delete, and remove. Nothing should be removed. Nothing should be dropped. So these are very small things. It's just a command. You write drop and things get off it. But one doesn't understand what they are actually deleting it from the back end.
Just a quick mention too, if anyone's just joined us on the live stream, please drop questions or comments or emojis into the chat. Um, yeah, and actually, I have a question now that you're talking about SQL too, or data queries and stuff. Because yeah, long time a fan of data things and data engineering, but I don't know that's now your current role is. But my question is, what's your favorite data tool at the moment? What's a tool that you're using at the moment that you're finding relatively like useful in data querying or exploring data sets more?
Okay. So a lot of them actually, and since I just told you that I've been just 4 months into this role, I'm also understanding the dynamics of big data and how we can host it, how we could manage it. And there are a lot of tools like Hadoop and everything, whatever user experience they allow us to see our data. That's something great. So previously, I used to just we have certain sources defined in our organization. From there, we have to pull data into the hub, like the data hub, and where we're making it available, all those sorts of data, all those sorts of tables, which pulls those sort of data. So pulling that data was something very known to get it from the source, and that is using the SQL queries. But coming down to the data sides, it's more of Impala and Hive queries. They significantly look the same, but there are certain features that they have in difference. But yeah, the queries are of the same hand of Impala, Hive, and SQL, if we say. But yeah, differently, we just give it like we write it in a different way. But yeah, the the structuring still remains to be the same. And then what next I found it really great is it's the Microsoft Power BI dashboard, where we actually put down all our reporting, and different dashboards comes into picture where you can, in a very colorful manner, in a very tabular or graphical manner, you can see your data, compare it, and it's up to you which all columns you actually select and want to have a stat. You want to see the stats of it. So the dashboard has been really handy for me to actually see a lot of data, and it's very user friendly for you to create a new dashboard for any of the client and give those sorts of easy to go reporting and dashboards for them to view their data. Apart from that, I guess if you have good hands on R language, that somewhere down the line gives you good picture of data analyzing. I would say the same for Python as well. There are a lot of libraries actually offered there, which you can also use it for your data analysis. And last, I would also mention about Jupyter Notebook as well, where if you have certain kinds of workflows which you run into your user environments, where you actually pull your data, those sorts of workflows or jobs or anything, or even analyzing your data could be done, and it offers its own terminal as well, everything there. You can have your own key tabs and everything and have those sorts of experience. So these all, because I'm using it, so I would say, I would not yet say that any of them are my favorite, but yes, they offer their own level of help and functionalities, which is very much useful for me. Putting things on the dashboard, then running workflows on the black screen, and writing it from the back end. How does the code looks like? How should it look like? How should it run as per the schedule, so that the same data refreshes at those hours? So these are few experiences I see, and the entire Hadoop package offers a lot of it. So you can view your data, you can see how it got refreshed, you can see the count of it using those Impala queries provided inside that package, and a lot you can do with that data as well with that package. So these are like end to end what I use and what I find easier, when it comes to data engineering and data analysis part.
What's one of the things? What's one of the challenges that you love the most about data engineering? Like, is it the handling large data sets and being able to almost interpret into some nice dashboards? Totally agree. By the way, that Microsoft dashboard stuff, that is really cool. The way you can drop stuff in now. But what's some of the challenges you love the most about data engineering?
Okay, so the very first fact that I transformed myself to be a data engineer in the first place was the data we see. Because I have been on the other side, I have seen that sort of data inaccuracy. The data was not complete. The consistency was not that appropriate. It is not consistent with the refreshes and everything, and the formatting as well of data, it's different from different sources. Like if you take it from one source, it will have 3 columns. If you take it from different other source, it will have 4 columns. So the formatting is different. And talking about the format of the date, time, everything, it's not consistent across all the sources. So these were the major factors that I found, that data has to be always consistent. It cannot be incomplete. That sort of things drive me, that there is a lot of raw data, unstructured data, which has to be taken care of and which has to be pushed to correct pipelines, and those sort of checks have to be done on those data. So this is, I guess, the biggest challenge which every organization is facing who are into the pathway of becoming a data driven organization, and they are analyzing their data on these factors, that how complete is their data, what if they're taking it from one source, making it consistent across all the sources they are bringing into that particular hub. So that's the biggest challenge with data one can see. Others follow, but yeah, completeness, checks, accuracy, these are all the biggest factors which pulls one data engineer to work on it better, to get it more complete, get it more structured.
I guess that is one thing, like I've always found handy, is knowing, and you've kind of been touching on it too, is knowing the data structure, and then also knowing how it's being collected, like how it's getting there. Sort of understanding both sides of that process helps you
Correct.
debug things a little better, because yeah, you can go to the developers and say, hey, you getting this into 3 columns, it should be 2. Um,
Yeah.
Do
And
you
being
have
a
a
developer, like being in the sorry to cut you off there,
that's
but being in the DevOps role, when I just switched to the data role, I could see that why I was struggling with data with my previous role, why there were a lot of incompleteness there, because data in the first place has not been given that much importance before. And once I say that I reversed my roles, but I found it really inspiring for myself and got a real reality check also, that I was playing across with really incomplete data, and now I can understand what I would have expected at that hour from that data, that it should have been complete, all proper, accurate, coming down same from all the sources. So that's something I understand, and I see that is the challenge here with data.
we do have a question, but before we go to that, I just have to ask because I'm still a data nerd too. But what's your favorite database type? And spoilers, mine is Postgres because I get to do NoSQL and SQL all in the one thing. It's still amazing. I love the fact
um,
that you can do JSON B blocks. Anyway, what's your favorite database type?
I would still say SQL, and SQL is my thing, because I'm afraid I would say that I've been doing it for years now, and those queries and everything, they've been really close to me. One day I wasn't able to use joiners, and now I am quite pro with that. So that gives me edge, and I can search data and everything. So I'm more comfortable with SQL. I know a lot has been progressed after it. Like you mentioned, it's Postgres and everything. A lot has come into picture. I would want to explore that, but yes, for now, my favorite database type has to be SQL only. That's something I really swear by with everything. If anything goes wrong, my data coming from my SQL, queries are the best ones. So from the sources, so yeah, SQL is my thing.
I have a long list of developer jokes, and I do have one for SQL. So before we go to the question, I'm going to delay it a little bit longer because it's an open source joke, so you can share it with everyone. And it's Friday. We need to smile after the week or so of well, queer. Yeah. Anyway, an SQL statement walks into a bar, sees two tables, and asks to join them. There you go. It's an old one because the tables
So,
and join them. Anyway,
yeah.
the so we do have a question. Davis Peter, and also heads up to anyone watching live. Please keep those questions coming in the chat. But what's your take on log retention policies in cloud platforms?
Um, I guess with cloud, we are getting exposed to a lot of logs actually, and that's something that's a good take on that particular platform, that they give us that service of seeing the logs in those ways, and those same can be integrated with different tools as well, like you host those logs on Splunk, or you see it on App Dynamics or Artifactory, anywhere wherever you want to push them across to, or even ServiceNow you can push those logs to. But I am very much not well versed with the retention policies that they offer on the cloud sphere. But would that integration part that they have with different tools and they can be hosted, I guess that depends a lot on the source and destination ends as well, from where you're hosting to where, and where you're seeing the logs at actually. So I guess those policies change when you see those logs on different platforms altogether, like the logs get printed onto Splunk, so what sort of reports and everything you publish there, you see the logs in those ways, the timestamps and everything, and how the retention policies are explained or penned down there is something different to what you can see it on ServiceNow in those logs, and when you have those developer access, and you see those logs printed over there. Or rather, if I just talk about on the data end, you see all those logs, be it on the Spark end, or any other platform that you're hosting it onto. So that may differ, but I can't say much because I don't hold that much knowledge on that sphere. So really sorry on that, but yeah, would love to explore more on those policies as well. Yeah.
I'm just going to add, because I was a payment CTO. Well, I was a CTO for a startup one time, like building out real-time payments. One thing I know we had to do as part of the PCI compliance piece, which, I mean, if anyone that's been through it before, just kudos, because that is a very, very thorough process. But in particular to logging, like we had to keep any of those logs for 3 years. So yeah, having deep storage is a great idea. So it'll save you space, it'll save you money. But yeah, I think like sort of adding to what you're saying, like it just depends on the the processes you have in place, like the requirements that you've got sitting behind the platform, and why you even have those logs to begin with. Like, and I think what you're saying earlier too is just reviewing all that periodically to make sure that, well, it's current, and keep some. Remember to document. Always document. Maybe do that Fridays, because we don't deploy to production. No one does that on a Friday.
Correct.
Please don't do that on a Friday. um,
And rather also there could be what I've seen is rather there are checks that certain data is kept in the archived mode, and from those data you just pull those sorts of old data which you want to see, or old logs, or old accesses related to a user, what they had once they move to a different role and everything. So those archival modes of data are also used by a lot of organization, and they archive those sorts of information.
yeah. No, totally important. Just going to wrap up with one thing I know you're heavily involved in, because I've seen you doing some really great presentations in a whole bunch of different communities and sort of open source groups. But tell us a bit about some of the communities that you're involved with.
Okay, so that is my favorite questions when we talk about communities, when we talk about togetherness, actually. And I just want to mention it before starting about communities, that once you be part of communities, small or big, or even start your own anything, you meet a lot of new people, lot of people with their own ideologies, with their own experiences, and even with the same level of like mindedness which you have. And the best example you see, like, I never knew Steve, and eventually through communities, through interactions, I got to know. So that is networking, that is communities which bring you down to this space where you interact with a lot of people. So with me, the experience has been really great, and it's since 2017 that I was part of a lot of communities. 2017, I started up with InfoSec Girls. I was the New Delhi chapter lead, and then eventually I moved to a lot of other communities as well. So I started up with OWASP. I guess everybody would be very much into OWASP, the top 10 and everything. So I was part of the local chapter in Delhi, and I used to go there, and it was my first interaction with all the top 10 and everything. And eventually I learned a lot about it, presented even about the top 10 in the local chapter. And that is somewhere down the line, first you listen, then you learn, and then you actually come down to that space of speaking about it. So that was the first stepping stone with OWASP. And then I came down to the section of OWASP that is VR, that is Women in AppSec, Diversity and Inclusion. That's a lot of people are part of it. Lordana, Zoe, Vandana, Astha, a lot of them are part of the committee. And we had a lot of diversity and technical session. A very recent session that me and Astha did in 2020 was a hackathon challenge on PCI DSS. All
Yeah.
the, all of them, like just you mentioned about PCI, and we did a session on it, and there was a hackathon. One has to prepare an architecture for it, and there was one winner for it who just created a great architecture for that. And that was something really good that we never knew about PCI DSS. We studied about it, gave it time for us, and then eventually presented and helped anyone to create an architecture of their own. And eventually, moving forward with different communities, I am part of Women in Cybersecurity on the global front, and they offer a lot of services actually. There are mentorship programs, and currently they're running one where you actually get mentored under one of the person which you want to be with. And it's a whole 1 year long program where you learn a lot about different aspects. It's not on the tech end, but more on the community curriculum end of, understanding the importance of influence, or, understanding the importance of negotiation, or, how can you be more communicative in your own sphere. So that sort of things you get mentored onto with a lot of tech help as well. So I think that mentoring someone is really great for me, but this time I thought to be a mentee as well. So I'm both a mentor and mentee. I just want to give out what I have, and I also want to learn from a fresh face as well, what they have done in their life, and how can I take things from them as well. So how can I learn more from them as well. So that's the case there. And with VCs, a lot of things have been part of. There was once a career fair by Nike, and I could actually interact with the main teams. That time I was the IAM consultant, so I could interact with the main teams of IAM there in Nike. Actually, the people who actually work on those front, I was directly talking to them, and that gave me a great experience. Actually, that one community is making you actually conversate with people who are actually working for such big organizations. So that was really a game change for me there. And then I am also a volunteer instructor for Cyber Preserve. That's a startup by Astha. And that is a complete different space where you get offerings of the different cyber areas and how you can learn them, and how you can be more, expert, or, more on that level that you know how to choose those things for your life. And do you want to become an AppSec person or a network sec person, or you want to be an IM consultant, or you want to go into governance or anything. So these are the platforms offered there. These were all the communities that I was part of. And then, along with two of my friends, Astha and Shruti Rupa, we started up with a new community that's Breaking Barriers Women in Cybersecurity. That started this January 2021. We're almost completing a year now in January 2022. And that's one community that we brought to envision women leaders actually, and have those stereotypes and break those stereotypes and be more inclusive into the industry. So that's one community that I'm heading, and this gives me next level amazing actually experience of having now 120 members in a span of one
Wow.
year, with a lot of collaborations. Actually, we did one with Snyk as well. We had Simon with us, who gave us a lot of insights about the company and how one can be included there. And that opens a lot of channels for a lot of people. We also connected with the Cobalt and a lot other communities as well, who came and collaborated with us. And this is where you actually interact with a lot of people in the industry and get a hold of their experience, their workings, and how you can drive your life or your career into those paths. So those opportunities, those things are offered. And I would be really, really happy if people could just back channel me after this session, and we could talk more about communities, not just the community I had, but in particular about what all things goes behind. And I would say communities actually groom you a lot, because you meet a lot of people, you learn from them, and you also give out what you have. You speak at certain places, you at times you be a listener at those ends, and a lot of life experiences come down to you, which the communities really, really put forward to with people. And that has been a game changer for me. So I think one should be very much invested into communities, and networking is the key there. You meet a lot of
Right.
people globally. It's just not locally, but globally you see a lot of people, and see what they're working on, how they're working on, and learning a lot of things. Like after this session, I'll be around Steve to learn a lot of things that he holds, that we had a talk about. So you learn with them small, small things. It's just, and it's really beneficial for you when you look back. When I look back, 2017, there has been an immense change in my personality, in my work style, in a lot of things that I've gained through this year with a lot of eminent people. And not just eminent, but not just the titles I'm talking about, but a lot of other people, you know, being, even the people who are in college right now, they're exposed to a lot of communities. But at my space, I wasn't part of any communities till I graduated. So that's something I feel really good, that people are investing into communities and learning from them, which at my time I could not do it. But now I feel people are at a good space when they are at the learning stages. So they should understand that of, giving back to the community. So
Yeah,
that's
I
my
think
take on it.
no, I think I mean one of the things you well touched on a fair bit there was always be learning, and I mean
Yes.
that's kind of what we do as technology folk, because the industry is not only moving so fast, but there's always new things to learn, there's always new skills to pick up, there's always new sections to the or facets to the industry to explore, and like even the emerging tech of quantum, which I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure is going to change everything
Yeah.
it very quickly too. But there's always something new to learn, and so many great people to learn from.
Mhm.
Particularly, well, I know I'm a product of the open source world because we're always learning things, we're always contributing back where we can. It's the open source
Yeah.
way, which is one of the things I love.
And also, you cannot work all the time. It's community has to give you that break as well from your work, where you
Yeah,
interact with people on normal things. It's not always that you code, that you fix things. It's just you sometimes sit with your coffee and just chat with people, and with different people chatting on virtual coffee or on real coffees, that could give you that break, that understanding of different things in life as well. It's not always the work, the full-time job we have, but to break that monotony, to break that space, communities offer you a lot of other things as well. It's not just the tech space. Yes, they offer the tech related data as well, but a lot of other things as well, which transforms you as your personality, like your full personality as well. And that's very important for you to be sane with your life, with your work and everything. So that's a big thumbs up for you to actually, if you're not part of any communities and you wish to, and you don't know how to do it, probably you can just reach back to me. I can help you with certain communities and get you linked there, how to be part of them. And it's not that it's a big payoff there, or you have to invest a lot of time. No, it's up to you when you want to invest your time there. How much you want to invest, it's up to you. But joining those sessions, being part of those talks, will help you a lot. Yeah, Davis is right, communities help a lot. Really, really, it helps a lot.
I do, and like I've been fortunate enough to have been around so many great open source coding communities, infrastructure communities all over the world, and everyone's just always so inviting. Like everyone's willing to share. It's like you said, it's networking. Like, and well, actually, my last question was literally, how do you get involved? But you've already covered that one.
Yeah.
I have been putting your Twitter up on the screen in case anyone wants to reach out and get in touch. But you're on LinkedIn and kind of all the other
Yeah.
platforms too, I'm guessing. So
I'm happy. Yeah, I'm happy to get loads of messages there. I just want to talk to new people, understand them, and if you want help there with communities or with anything, I'm happy to help to what my extent is. But yes, I'm ready to help, ready to interact, ready to know your views on things we talked today, and want to know more what other people thinks about security, about IAM, about data engineering, and what all things are going on. So would love to interact with a lot of you. So yeah, welcome into my DM.
amazing, thank you. So great to have you on. And yeah, if anyone wants to get involved in any of the organization stuff or just wants to chat or virtual coffee, please reach out on all the social things. I'll put that banner up again. Click. There we go. So yeah, reach out to Saman and say hi. Just yeah, uh, drop her a note.
Yeah.
But yeah, thank you very much. So amazing to have you on, and yeah, look forward to chatting more soon.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Steve, for having me. It was really a pleasure to talk to you, and yeah, really thankful to you. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Just going to wrap up here now. For those that are watching the recording, hope you got something from that session. Please reach out to, well, Saman or me, or well, anyone from the Snyk DevRel team, if you just want some advice, want to say hi, some mentoring, or well, if for any reason at all, almost. One last thing I wanted to mention just before we go is of course, the Log4j issue, which has been quite consistent over the last week. There's been a deluge of amazing resources. So I'm going to put up one that the team here has started to collab on, and then also now we've got again external open source people contributing to this list. But this is one list to rule them all. No, an amazing list of resources for finding out more, some further readings, some patches that have gone in. Totally worth checking out. There's even a list of memes in there because we've been compiling from all sorts of different sources. So check that one out. I'll just drop that into the chat as well. And sending, there we go. The link as well if anyone wants to check that out or contribute. Always open to contributors. So that's all we've got time for this Snyk Live. Tune in again soon with some more live streams happening throughout the next day or so, as we've got more amazing content, some amazing speakers lined up, actually particularly on the Log4 Shell or Log4j issues. So check those out, and we'll see you again real soon. Thanks for tuning in.